more chances, you can buy 4 tickets for $300. Only 2,000 tickets will be sold. Never stop at a gas station again. Green up your ride with a raffle ticket from IllinoisSolar.org. That's IllinoisSolar.org.
A minimum of 1,600 tickets must be sold during the time frame for the car to be awarded. If fewer than 1,600 tickets are sold, a grand prize will be cash only, administered as a 50-50 raffle. No limit on the number of tickets that can be purchased. Ticket only valid if sold in the continental U.S. The drawing is open to the public, however, participants need not be present to win. Winner responsible for all taxes, title, and destination charges. The raffle drawing will be held on October 3rd, 2015. See the rules and regulations page at IllinoisSolar.org for details.
I remember the moment.
I'll never forget that moment.
As long as I live.
As long as I live.
Several of us were working to rescue a family.
The house collapsed on top of the cellar door and trapped them.
We had to use Humvees and heavy machinery to move massive trees and debris.
We got them out.
We helped a lot of people out.
It felt good to know I could really make a difference.
Because I'm a citizen soldier in the National Guard.
Be there the moment your community needs you. Learn more at NationalGuard.com.
Check 1, check 2, house fire.
Sponsored by the Illinois National Guard. Aired by the Illinois Broadcasters Association and this station.
At Kubota, value means getting more than you expected for less than you thought. See your Kubota dealer today for incredible finance offers and instant cash rebates. That's value. That's Kubota.
Apparently, these tie lines
has a
were
partner
to
to
where
watch his
Rich
back.
was using tie
The
line
other
2 as
escaped
well,
inmate,
and I guess
Richard
you guys
Matt,
were like
was shot
intermingling, so you were on Mighty
yesterday.
House there for a little bit.
State Police Superintendent Joseph D'Amico has a warning for people around.
Yeah, there you go. Hey.
I was saying, we learned today that I guess Rich was on tie line 2 as well, and so when you were getting on, there was a little intermingling. You were on Mighty House today, man.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. As I was going, check 1, hey, what's happening?
Yeah.
Well, they were lucky to have me as a guest, quite frankly.
Oh, and hey, man, thanks for coming on Wayne Besson, dude. That was awesome.
That was great.
I'm trying to get the producer job for that, so I booked you, and you came on, so thanks.
Hey, well done. It was completely professional and effective in that circumstance. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, man, I booked a lot of local guests and a bunch of people. It was cool, man, the booking, you know, and if this all goes well, man, I'll be booking people for this show, sure.
That's great. I'm for it. And we have Johnny today.
Yep.
Awesome.
I think you're some kind of deviated prevert. I think General Ripper found out about your preversion and that you were organizing some kind of mutiny of preverts.
I don't find anything wrong with you.
Oh. Well, sure it's not for a lack of looking.
Cool. 20 seconds. Have a good show.
Cool. Thanks, man.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Well, I, for one, don't even know where to start. There are slow news weeks, and then there are news weeks careening through a kid zone at 80 miles an hour while yanking the steering wheel back and forth in the middle of a cop-chased bender. And this is one of those. This is the fast news week.
Crazy week.
Oh, my gosh. And Johnny Million back with us.
Yeah.
Such a great thing. And I'm so glad it timed out that you were here for this one. Not that I think you would have missed it. I guess we should just jump straight in. I mean, I don't know what more else needs to be said.
Which one of the three giant things do we address?
Trump losing Miss Universe on Univision because he said most Mexicans.
He's going to sue them, breach of contract.
They come here, they bring the drugs, they're rapists. Some of them are lovely people.
They do not send their best and brightest.
No, they don't. They send their rapists. It is not
because
say
you know.
Yeah.
You know how they send people over here, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just like they're in a. It reminds me of like the bottom of a cargo plane with people yelling "Go, go,
yeah,
go!"
right.
Slapping people on the back of the head. Yeah.
Ever raped anybody? Yeah. Out.
Yeah. Go.
What about
go.
you? I'm a math professor. Stay in the plane. Stay in the plane. You're going back. Okay. So Supreme Court this week effectively demolishes the case against the Affordable Care Act. And allows gay marriage.
That's
in
pure
all 50
applesauce.
states. Yeah, that in and of itself, by the way, the panic around that it was almost comically large, and then it got Muppet-ish around gay marriage. We will read some of the great moments today of the dissents from the judges on the Supreme Court, who, by the way, seem to be complaining about what they do most of the time. You could read what Scalia wrote about language in both the case against the Affordable Care Act and the case for gay marriage as if it was a sharply worded attack on his defense of corporate personhood. It's amazing to me the legal, logistical, and intellectual blindness that this man has about the fact that he supports the idea that corporations are human beings, qualify as people on every front, but two gay people can't get married because that's the destruction of democracy, and that words lose their meaning when spirit of the law is maintained, which is is the essence of what was going on in the Affordable Care Act. It should have never been, that case never should have made its way up through the district courts. It was simply a legal tap dance to get it there. The reality is it was never going to pass any kind of genuine Supreme Court litmus test if they really cared about their jobs. The fact that he wrote this maniacal dissent against it, pretending that this somehow redefines our legal system in the country, is
I don't think it helped their case at all.
Not at all. Is childish beyond measure, and effectively again, cuts against this idea that he has that somehow corporations are human beings and that the Robert
It's this weird conditional hypocrisy. If it falls within his pseudo-moral code, then yes, of course it's wonderful. But if not, then all of a sudden logic's on his side, this weird fake logic.
I think you've actually discovered a new tagline for Fox News.
Conditional hypocrisy?
Conditional hypocrisy.
Thank you.
It's kind of brilliant. Scalia said in his dissent that we destroyed democracy, that the majority in this case are a bunch of snooty smarty pantses that think they know better than everybody else. That even though he believes bigoted things, he's not a bigot. That all these ladies and Kennedys, that are writing in the majority are all pretentious narcissists. And my personal favorite one, do you know what a putsch is? John, do you know what a putsch is?
No, but again, it sounds dirty when you say it.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm very proud of the fact that some words of, vague meaning sound dirty when I say them. He referred to this might be a new word for a lot of people. It certainly is shocking in his. If you want to look it up, it's spelled Putsch.
What was that guy in high school we knew? Greg? Greg Pooch?
Pooch? Yeah. It's different. Different spelling. I think he was straight up how the dictionary spells is how we spelled what we called it. Okay, so anyways, the fascinating aspect of this is that he refers to the 5 justices who compose the majority. He said, and this is the quote, okay, what really astounds is the hubris reflected in today's judicial putsch. The 5 justices who compose today's majority are entirely comfortable concluding that every state violated the Constitution for all of the 135 years between the 14th Amendment's ratification and Massachusetts' permitting of same-sex marriage in 2003. Okay, all but the first sentence of that could be used to defend the miscegenation and the inability of people to get married of different races. That's the exact same concept, that was thrown about when people of different races wanted to get married, and they were going, "What? Oh, we've all been violating the Constitution. Suddenly, it's unconstitutional. Oh, all of a sudden, it's so we've been breaking the law all this time. Is that what you're telling me?" That's his defense of it. Instead of, "No, we just came to our senses," right. Which is the reality. But that
is how the ruling was written. It was about common sense,
right?
I just spaced on the Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts said this was ridiculous from the get-go, and the news analysts were like, "Can you believe they use common sense?"
Right. Well, in this particular sense, he calls it a judicial putsch. Okay, putsch is a German word that means violent insurrection. It's like a coup. It means essentially the coup. A coup. Except there are.
Is that Scottish for cow?
Yes, right. No, it's
cool.
I think it's pigeon talk. I don't know. But
okay.
But in reality, like he refers to it as a putsch. There are ways to say there's a nonviolent coup and a violent coup. There's military coups and whatever. But a putsch is always a putsch. It's always violent. That's what the definition of it is. So, again, this is him using kind of Fox News languaging to create this permanent vanity, or if people who happen to hold bigoted views are just not allowed to be bigoted in public anymore. Let's be abundantly clear, bigots, if you're listening. You're still allowed. You're still allowed to be bigots.
Go nuts.
There's enough people around now that they don't want to hear it. They can tell you without fear of you. And that's the part that's uncomfortable. Now,
and you're not going to be arrested if you just walk around and people about being a bigot.
You have total freedom to be a jerk in this country.
Right. But it's not freedom of speech. Is not trespassing. Freedom of speech is not aggravated assault.
Nope.
That's not. No matter what you're saying, if you're going there going, "I love Disneyland," that doesn't mean that you can go after somebody with a heavy thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And at the same time, you also are free to, keep your job in broadcasting. if your company is okay,
that's abundantly clear,
with somebody like you spouting whatever kind of nonsense you want. You can even run for president. Lots of them can run. You can. That's right. Bigots. Anybody can be America. This is still. You know what this is? This is proof that America is still land of the free, and that anybody can be president, even if you're not black. You can still be president. Bigots. That's right. You don't have to be black to be president or supportive of it. No, you can run for president if you're Ted Cruz and think that Friday was some of the darkest 24 hours in our nation's history. Forget 9/11, forget Pearl Harbor, forget all the times we almost nuked ourselves into oblivion, or the McCarthy hearings, or the assassination of president after president. No.
But the recognition of human rights?
Yeah, for a group of people that give Ted Cruz the ickies is 24 hours of the darkest moments in our history. We'll be back with some of the judicial gems of this week's ruling.
Won't you kiss me once, baby? Just a kiss goodnight, maybe. You and I will fall in love. People.
You know, man, we got Steve in the Gold Coast, but he can wait till like 11:30.
Okay, cool. You mean after the show?
You're on a
over?
jag, dude.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true. You forget I'm in a different time zone. You're like, he can wait till 11:30. I'm like, the show's over at 11.
Yep.
Yep.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Okay, let's jump right in, because there's a couple of these that I could play all coy with them over time, but I have a couple of these quotes, a couple of these chunks of judicial goodness are just too good to okay, Roberts, his dissent was almost written for the people who won as this kind of harumph. Like Scalia
for the marriage ruling.
Yeah, Scalia wrote it as a It's kind of like the napkin that he's writing his next speech for, a sideline CPAC group you've never heard of. His withering dissent was crafted for those guys. You know what I mean? It's like written on Shriner's 3x5 cards. This is why the gays are taking over. Kind of that.
This is why we can't have nice things.
That's exactly it. That's the name of the speech. And I think it's actually called "This is why they have all the nice things."
Yeah,
those
they
gays,
take care of them.
They're so organized, and their houses look like Pier 1 catalogs, and I can't even. My sock drawer's a mess.
They're such considerate neighbors. It drives me crazy.
This Roberts one is amazing. Okay, there's a few in this, where he harumps about the Constitution, which is pretty hilarious. Where he's like, celebrate your win. And this is a quote, if you're among many of the Americans of whatever sexual orientation who favor expanding same-sex marriage, by all means, celebrate today's decision. Celebrate the achievement of a desired goal. Celebrate the opportunity for a new expression of commitment to a partner. Celebrate the availability of new benefits, wink, wink, free stuff, your Obama phone for, that's probably a smartphone. You can sign up on Grindr.
I forgot about the Obama phone.
But yeah, right. But do not celebrate the Constitution. It had nothing to do with it. Wambulance coming right around the corner. But
the Constitution had nothing to do with
it? Yeah, this was just a bunch of judges deciding because they wanna. Okay, that one's pretty normal compared to this one. As a result, the court invalidates the marriage laws of more than half the states and orders the transformation of a social institution that has formed the basis of human society for millennia. For the Kalahari Bushmen and the Han Chinese, the Carthaginians and the
Rockets,
Aztecs.
red glare.
Yeah, wait. And the Aztecs, just who do we think we are? That's how he ends that paragraph ends with, just who do we think we are? This has been the basis of society for millennia. Well, first of all, excuse me, the Kalahari Bushmen, the Han Chinese, the Carthaginians, and the Aztecs, all patriarchal societies where the root of marriage, especially in those societies, was male ownership of their brides. To this day, that stands as a profound description of marriage in the aligned societies in those particular areas. This is not like the joining of two equals. There's no element of the joining of two equals in the Old Testament, much less the Aztecs, for Pete's sake, who, by the way, used to cut the hearts out of human sacrifices, sometimes in the tens of thousands, whenever they opened a new temple. This is like...
Really?
Yes. This is like...
That's just what they do?
Yeah. It was like the ribbon cutting of a new Walmart. If they decided to just slice open the chest of all the former employees of another Walmart. And Roberts went, what about the business practices of Walmart? I mean, their coupons, you gotta come... I mean, hey. And the Kalahari Bushmen, the Han Chinese, the Carthaginians, and the Aztecs. Who goes to the Aztecs for cultural cement to go? We need. I thought at that point he was kidding. And he quotes the dictionary. He goes to the frigging dictionary.
Webster defines marriage
as the legal one man and one woman for life.
That's right. Did he do that?
Webster is not a legal document, you moron. It's a cumulative conceptual thing for people who have no idea. It's for the dumbest person in the room. It's for
me writing a book report.
It's for me trying to look up what the heck the Carthaginians were.
It sounds like that stuff you don't want in your food.
Yeah, the state of Illinois has stated that they have known that the Carthaginians are there are toxins in the environment at this facility that can cause birth defects in Carthaginians. By the way, for the record, I'm looking it up right now. Okay, this is if you're looking at the Carthaginians, they're rooted in the Punics, and who were known for child sacrifice.
It's one thing to do it; it's another thing to be known for it.
Yeah, they were
like I've done all kinds of things I'm not proud of, but I don't believe I'm known for them.
They were servants of Baal. By the way, they were servants of Baal Haman, which, by the way, Baal is one of the other words for Satan that the Christian right likes to throw around when they don't want to, when they don't want to sound like church lady. They whip
like
out
football,
the word. Yeah,
softball.
No, ball. B-A-A-L-L. B-A-A-L. B-A-A-L is they use it kind of interspersed as another word for Lucifer, and but that's the weird, like the Carthaginians. It says right here, Wikipedia. This straight up, and by the way, Jeffrey Toobin says calls Roberts's decision, his dissent, a seemingly Wikipedia sourced dissent. Like he just whipped out, like he just went looking for people that had.
He went Rand Paul on him.
Yeah, he totally did. Just cribbing stuff from there. But in the first paragraph, but the Carthaginians retained some of their old cultural identities and practices, such as child sacrifice. This was not outside of the regional norms, as many culture at the time made human sacrifices. That's the society that all of a sudden Roberts goes, are we all of a sudden better than the Carthaginians? Yes, we are. You moron. Okay.
Who are we? Really?
Who are we who do we think we are to say we're better than people who used to carve up children? Honestly. Well, we want wedding cakes for 2 men or 2 women. Isn't that the same as cutting up a child? And isn't giving that right to people the same as marching into a government office with military weapons and gunning down everyone in there and putting up a new flag? Isn't that the same, Justice Scalia? I'd have to look it up in the dictionary to know whether it's the same, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not. Okay, so the big question is the slippery, and this is where you get into double entendre hell, the slippery slope argument.
I'm not going to say it sounds dirty, because you know it does.
It totally does. And boy, when you start getting Republicans talking about gay marriage, they start whipping out the slippery slope. They
thought they had slippery slopes with the Confederate flag. First thing, they're going to take them off the Capitol. Next thing you know, they're going to take them off of license plates and car magnets. Yeah. Really? John Stewart was like, usually slippery slope implies the thing it leads to is even worse.
Right, yeah, like they're going to take away the Confederate flag, then there'll be nothing but double restrooms, and you have to prove you're gay to go in one. Like that's where their brain is really going. That's
wow, how do you prove you're gay?
Well, that's a reference to the how do you know you're transgender and you're not just dressing up like a woman so you can go in there and see ladies pee? Because that's what that's the Huckabee argument. That's the Huckabee argument for this.
Interesting.
Okay.
He might be onto something. I'm going to give that a try during the break.
No, you're not, John.
Okay, I forgot my frock at home.
Yeah. The Jeffrey Toobin's article, which is great, in the New Yorker, quotes a guy, trial judge Leon Bazile, who explained why miscegenation needed to stand, why it needed to stay the law of the land. And he said, Almighty God, and I'm sure he talked like this at the time, created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red. I don't know why Malay got its own place in it. And he placed them upon the separate continents, he wrote. And but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriages. The fact that he separated the races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix. Okay, first of all, I would go out on a limb and go, maybe he shouldn't have taught Noah how to build a really big boat if he didn't want people on different continents to mix. Secondly, obviously, so he's basically saying that international travel is against God's will. Because God never wanted you guys to meet, much less mingle. I can't imagine how God feels about the Apple App Store and Grindr and Tinder. When we get back...
But Hal, we do have a new band name, though. The Huckabee Argument.
Yeah, that's actually great.
Yeah.
Yeah. No hits.
You can get away with anything.
Yeah, no hits, and you can play anybody's cover. That's the Rand Paul version of it. When we come back, I'm going to deal with this slippery slope.
Ew.
We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah, but interestingly enough, Obama Mama in the chat room, the idea that God gave you free will is, to you and I, seems like a logical thing. Like, God is actually okay with a lot more stuff than you might give him credit for. Oh, he hates these cans. It's great. But the reality is, Christians see it as God gave you the ability to sin so that you could come to him and it would have some meaning. So just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And how dare you use the feet that he gave you, would be their argument. How dare you use a boat to go to a country where there are brown people and have sex with them, or how brown people could build a boat of their own when they've never even heard of Jesus. Boat over here to this, across the Pacific Ocean, people it with generations of human beings, and then start having sex with white settlers when they show up. Clearly heathens. Savages, really.
Still got Stephen the Gold Coast on the line. That's it, though.
Cool.
Yeah.
Drip glass. Yeah. Carthaginians would have been wouldn't have been as forgiving post Civil War.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
So I always like to give you guys tools to use in the linguistic battle most of the time uphill against a tremendous amount of nonsense, especially when it comes to the slippery slope arguments. The slippery slope argument that comes from gay marriage is, well, now I guess it's okay that you can marry a kid or a dog. Okay, first of all, this is where Republicans have a real problem with the concept of consensual behavior. That's why they have a problem with quote-unquote legitimate rape, or they actually think in terms of, like, there are kinds of rape that are like just happen, and then there's rape that's like bad, but that doesn't happen. That's a guy in a ski mask with a gun. If someone kills your kids to kill them later, then that's not real rape. That's how they think. They really do that. So they have there's like a blank spot in their brain around the concept, and maybe they should look it up in Robert's dictionary about what consent is and what the meaningfulness of two people wanting to be involved in an activity. Okay, and so the idea you can marry an animal or you can marry a child is totally decimated by the idea that we're talking about two consenting adults, and that a child cannot give consent, and that an animal cannot, insofar as I know, I don't speak dog, can give consent. So that goes away. Okay, then they go, well, what about polygamy? And that brings us to another one of Roberts' points. Roberts brings this up. He says, it sure seems like this leads to polygamy. I do not mean to equate marriage between same-sex couples with plural marriages in all respects. There may be relevant differences that compel different legal analysis. He knows this, that's why he puts that sentence in there. But if there are, petitioners have not pointed to any. That's because petitioners are not petitioning for gay marriage. Petitioners are polygamy. They're petitioning for the same legal rights between two people. That's why it's not their job to fight for polygamy. So they haven't said why there would be, difference. They're not looking for that. When asked about a plural marital union at oral argument, petitioners asserted that a state doesn't have such an institution, which is the case. They're arguing for similar rights under an institution that already exists. Men and women marrying in a heterosexual marriage have already existed and get all kinds of legal benefits from the state and from the country. They just want the same rights in that. There is no polygamous state union that says, we have polygamy in this state, so therefore we want that right too. But that is exactly the point. He says, the states at issue here do not have an institution of same-sex marriage either. No, but they have marriage between two people, and two straight people can always do this, so two gay people should have this right to do it. It's the same-sex aspect is an adjective. It is an add-on. They have marriage between two human beings already existing. It is just isolated to a heterosexual couple at this point. So all they're asking for is that two gay people can have the exact same right. Now, when it comes to polygamy, and polyamory is an emotional thing. Polygamy is the actual thing. When a man, by the way, polygamy, just so we can be really clear and giggle a little bit, polygamy is any kind of multiple person marriage. When a man has multiple wives, which is how we...
So my wife is committing polygamy, probably, with me, because I have multiple personalities.
That doesn't qualify, because you're just crazy. That's just,
okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to marry...
She's just the poor woman that's married to that crazy guy.
You're allowed to... unless one of your personalities is gay, in which case, happy Friday. So polygamy is any kind of group marriage. Polygyny, or polygyny, if you want to go that way, is a man with multiple wives, and yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. Polyandry is a woman with multiple husbands. That happens less frequently, but I'm for it. In their own way. And that's a reference to andro, which is male hormones. That idea they go straight for genitalia when it's a man having multiple wives, but they go straight for hormones when it's in their description when it's a woman with multiple husbands. It's fascinating. It's kind of like the old usage of hysterectomy for removing a woman's uterus, which I talk about in my stand-up, because it should be called a uterectomy, but it's about removing a woman's craziness, her hysteria. Yep. So So these words are still rooted in that kind of misogynistic language that happened in the medical establishment for decades. And by the way, this defense of we've always done it this way and we need to keep this, that the institution is more important than any new
very
information.
Effective. It always holds up to logic.
Sure. Let us remind it that the man who suggested that physicians wash their hands before a birth was drummed out of was drummed out of the British medical establishment for heresy, for suggesting that doctors had dirty hands. When they finally came around, hundreds, thousands, and then later millions upon millions of children were saved, and women were saved simply by this single act. And the reasoning behind why we shouldn't have to wash our hands as doctors when we're giving birth was the same God made us pure and we know better than you nonsense that both Roberts and Scalia put in their, everything was fine until gay marriage came along argument.
What about my argument? I didn't pee on my hands.
Well, considering that that was used as a form of sterilization that was actually superior in some ways to not washing your hands at all.
All right. Yeah, so Hal told me I should have peed on my hands.
It beats not doing anything, especially if they've been stung by a jellyfish. I'm not recommending this as medical advice. That being said, so the slippery slope argument. Let's deal with this once and for all, and let's give liberals a real tool when you're dealing with the right wing saying that gay marriage is just going to lead to all these other forms of marriage. First of all, knock out child marriage and animal marriage with consent. Look, animals and kids can't say, I'm okay with being married to you. They can't linguistically and they can't legally because a child does not have the ability to discernments. And if, by the way, if that Republican who's talking to you says, well, why shouldn't they? Then go, do you believe in pederasty? Do you think a child should have sex with an adult? And that will back them into a corner they can't get out of. So you're safe there. That linguistically, you've got that covered. Let's go to polyamory and polygamy in general. Now, what about group marriage and polygamy? Doesn't that make this legal? Here's your answer. You're going to have to ask Rand Paul. Because that's a libertarian issue. I'm for gay marriage and two people having the right to it. But if you really want to talk about whether or not multiple people should have the freedom to get married, you're going to have to ask the libertarians. That's their issue. Because it is. Because that is solely on their desk. Because if they're the ones who are just arguing for kind of blatant freedoms, heroin, if pot's legal, so should heroin be. That's Ron Paul's business. Mm-hmm. I'm not for that. I'm not for just kind of kicking open the doors. I'm for a more socially open, a more loving society. But if you want to talk about polygamy, you're going to have to ask Rand Paul. That's all you need to say. You're going to have to talk to libertarians about that. I'm supporting the right of two people, gay, straight, or otherwise, to get married because marriage between two people has already existed, so that I believe that should extend to people of same sex as well. I'm just believing in equal protection under the marriage laws. You're trying to create a whole new or recreate an entire a different legal apparatus, and you're going to have to ask libertarians why that's legal. So just and drop the mic, man. Walk away. You don't have to say any more than that. You don't have to get caught up in their BS. All you have to do is say, go ask Rand Paul. That's it. You're done. If you want, somebody goes, well, polygamy people, what about group marriage? That's illegal, and why can't this lead to that? I don't know. You're going to have to ask Rand Paul about that because they're the ones fighting for everybody to have kind of, blanket.
Willy-nilly,
just
anarchy-esque rights.
Exactly. Okay, knock yourself out. They're going to have to craft an entire different tax code just for those people. They're not allowing people into tax breaks that already exist, which is what same-sex marriage does. They're going to have to create an entire different tax code for polygamy. So if they're going to do that, and you think the government should give those tax breaks to everybody who does that, that's Rand Paul's business. That's the libertarians. That's a Republican issue. Republicans are for polygamy. I'm not. I just think gay people should have the same rights as straight people. Right now, nobody has the right to polygamy. And we're just saying there should be equal rights for that. If you want to talk about why women should get paid the same, then we'll talk again about equal protection under the law. But that's your tool. From now on, anybody who brings up the slippery slope, you got it covered, right? You just go, hey, dogs and kids can't give consent. If you want to talk about polygamy, you're going to have to talk to Rand Paul. There for that.
There you
I'm
go.
not.
My knee jerk is usually, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, but sometimes you're trapped at Thanksgiving dinner.
True.
But drop the mic, man. We'll get to your call, 773-763-9278. Do you agree with Scalia that we destroyed the Constitution? Do you agree with Scalia that the majority are pretentious narcissists, that they've destroyed religious liberty, that I'm
upset that he refers to applesauce in a negative connotation. I love applesauce.
Do you agree with Clarence Thomas that gays had it just fine until Friday? They didn't need any help. They were like slaves. They were doing okay. We'll take your call, 773-763-9278. If anyone here can think of a reason why this man should not be able to marry this asparagus, let him speak now or forever hold his peace. Your Honor, I'm here. This cabbage next to me has an objection. Since he can't speak, I will speak on his behalf as his legal representative. Today's a good day for trolls, though, quite frankly, Tom.
Two callers on the line.
Excellent. We'll take Steve first, and then we'll grab the second one, if he's still with us. Trolls must call in hour one. Yeah, or the beginning of hour two. They can call directly in the beginning of hour two. That's fine, too.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back to the show. Let's take your call, 773-763-9278.
We're gonna go to Ted in Chicago.
Ted.
Excellent. Hey, Ted, welcome.
Hey, Hal, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Hey, I really liked your comments on the slippery slope argument, and I just had one thing I wanted to add. I know I'm kind of familiar. Scalia, when he goes to the law schools, one of the things he tries to do is back people into a reductio absurdum sort of argument by saying, well, if it's about love, and I love an animal, then doesn't your premise suggest I should be able to marry an animal? And I think the problem for someone who advocates the slippery slope argument is it always messes with their position as well, right? I mean, if we're afraid that the institution of marriage expanding is to marry dolphins or marry hundreds of friends, then isn't the with the institution of marriage at all allowing for that possibility, and so doesn't heterosexual marriage open the door to that possibility as much as homosexual marriage? I mean, and then it leads him into a problem where, well, why should we, instead of refusing to expand marriage, not abolish it? That position is just as logical from your supposed fear, but I think that really lays bare the problem is that it's not really a genuine fear about the logical extent of this. Slippery slopes are usually disingenuous excuses not to give people rights, which is the problem.
Yep. Exactly, and it's you see this often in drug laws. And in legalizing pot, for example, because they use the gateway drug. It's as if gay marriage is a gateway, union to other nonsense, and they always go straight to, well, everybody who's ever used heroin smoked pot. Well, they also ate apple pie. So at a certain point, you can go back to anybody who's done heroin, and they've consumed some sort of sweet dessert. No question. And the act of consuming a sugar-based dessert was part of the initial high that led you later to your nervous system liking the idea of being high in the first place. So you can backdate this entirely and go, we just need to wipe out sugar. That's the ad infinitum kind of concept. And you're absolutely right.
Well,
yeah.
And I think, too, I mean, the reality is that policies in general should be done on cost-benefit analysis. You have to draw arbitrary lines based on what's beneficial for society. I mean, to some extent, outlawing murder is a restraint of my freedom if I happen to be somebody who wants to kill people. So the laws are always finding a balance between liberty and not. The marriage, it's not hurting anyone. That's why it's right, not because we need to draw the line in some magical place to stop bestiality. It's about what's beneficial for people in society.
Exactly. And you're also right that in regard to the freedom to murder, it effectively stops the freedoms of the other person permanently. And that's why, as a society, we go, okay, if it's his freedom, this person no longer... Well, the religious aspect of this thing that you can no longer rail against gay marriage or have about it or preach it in your church are not affected at all. And so this and this idea that you somehow go, well, I have a bit how I serve cake. I'm not going to give cakes to people who I believe violate my version of Christianity. Well, then you say we don't make cakes for people who are getting remarried. We don't make cakes for Syrians. We don't make cakes for Israelites who broke with the commandment of the Lord and do not keep the Sabbath on Saturday versus Sunday. At a certain point, you have to go, okay, then if your biblical doctrine is how you're doing this, you can run your business that way, but you gotta do all of it. You can't, you have to ask the wedding party, are you serving dairy and meat at the same thing? If there's steak and milk being served in the restaurant, I can't bake because it is as violative of my religious beliefs as if it's two gay people getting married. And that's where it falls apart. That's where the slippery slope turns on them. All right, well, if you're going to say you have a biblical reason for not supporting a woman's right to make her own choices about her own body, or a biblical reason for not allowing gay people, not serving gay marriages, well, then you have to go, well, then you have all the other prescriptions of your religion to the absolute base. And your base calls for the killing of these people. So obviously, you're running aground. So how about if you're going to run a business and everybody else's taxes have to support your business, if it's a for-profit business, you've got to let everybody partake in that business. And if you don't want to serve gays, you can say, we'll serve gays, but my cake company is I hate gay people, and all of the cake I make look like Duck Dynasty. Sorry, we only make Duck Dynasty cake toppers here. And if you want a really ironic gay wedding, we'll do it.
Ironic gay wedding.
Yeah.
How can you all right, so how do you prove you're ironically gay?
By your hat, I think.
Sure, I'll give you a PJ.
Yeah, I guess. Easy. All right.
Yikes!
You should. Dennis flinched. She was like looking at the dump button.
Hey, let's go to Steve in the Gold Coast.
Go to
before
Steve in the
12 o'clock,
Gold
huh?
Coast.
He's the filthiest guy we have on.
Right.
All right, Steve, don't prove me wrong. Don't embarrass me.
No, thank you for taking my call. I mean, you make the same argument my uncle did. I mean, he's a single guy, sheep farmer, never married, and this false equivalency that somehow we're going to lead down this slippery slope. I mean, I would
hypocrisy.
Ask people who argue this point. Well, okay, so then given that logic, why is it that, I can't yell, or is there a threat that I'm going to be able to yell fire in a crowded theater? Because, I do have the right to freedom of speech, yet we've drawn the line saying that I can't do this.
Right.
I'm entitled to own a gun, but I can't build a nuclear weapon and own it legally. I can't possess nerve gas, yet it's a weapon. I can buy a tank tomorrow in this country, but it has to have its turret disabled.
Right.
So we draw the line all the time.
Right.
We draw the line all the time in this country. The idea behind our system of government is predicated on the Enlightenment, i.e. that, as you move forward, and this is something that the Founding Fathers, repeatedly noted, that as we move forward and our base of knowledge increases, that our laws are going to change because we are not perfect. We were not perfect in 1789, and that means that as we move forward, that knowledge is by nature, given the principles of the Enlightenment, which are based on reason, rationality, logic, the scientific method, that as we learn more, we change our laws. So how do people whose entire careers are predicated upon these principles, based upon these belief systems, are now going to reject that entire paradigm? That is just beyond me.
Right. Well, you have to understand, these are the same people who love to quote the Reagan quote about how the Constitution is a document that was effectively dictated by God. And yet in the Constitution it refers to Native Americans as savages. Right. We obviously outgrew God's dictation in that term. And if you asked Ronald Reagan himself, are Native Americans savages, he'd go, well, of course not.
And you constantly have to remind them that, yes,
that's in there.
These are commandments, these are amendments. They are not one and the same.
I'll go one bigger than that. The commandments themselves we've changed the commandments themselves. We don't actually follow the commandments.
It's God, right? And using the
follow some of them.
God intended all of us to be separate. Then when do we white people pack up and leave Native American land?
Right,
because,
exactly.
We're the ones who came here.
Yeah.
Oh, but that's different.
That was divine right.
It has to be different.
They were supposed to get out of the way.
Divine right.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Let's be real. Let's be abundantly clear. We're being told, we're being lectured on whether or not gay people should have the same right to have a committed relationship by people who think that that gay people are all about promiscuity and don't want committed relationships, who also believe that an indication of the depth of their service of Jesus Christ is the fact that they can carry a gun in public. So the logic loop. And
if I can make this last point, and I think to some extent we're doing a disservice to what happened yesterday in this ruling, because we are actually granting the people who are still opposing this decision, some latitude, because there are a significant number of them. But clearly the tide has shifted. Yeah. And in 40 years, this is going to look much the same way that divorce in the 1950s. It was actually something stigmatized.
It'll look like Loving v. Virginia. Right.
Right, exactly. It's going to be ridiculous, and there's not going to be, you'll get 1% of the people out there who are going to say, "Oh my God,
I agree with
gay
you.
Marriage shouldn't be allowed."
I agree with you, but in the time that we are in right now, 4 justices decided to write dissenting opinions. Not one, all 4 of the dissenting judges wrote a specific opinion vilifying this, and
they must be so angry.
That's nearly unprecedented. And so it's indicative of where we are now. And so calling them out for who they are in this moment is actually, I think, a healthy exercise. Thanks for the call. We'll be back right after this. More. Your call 773-763-9278. And the Affordable Care Act is protected law of the land once again.
Again.
Again. Again. And again.
Four calls on the line.
Cool.
One of them being Nashville Carl.
All right.
10 seconds. Here we go.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
Live exclusively for WCPT AM and FM in Chicago and streaming worldwide at chicagosprogressivetalk.com. Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
The dude abides.
But we are willing to learn.
Welcome back to the show. We've got callers on the line, and we've got a ton to talk about. By the way, little happy news announcement: Bristol Palin is pregnant with her second child.
Out of wedlock.
Yeah, that's true. She is not married. Although the nice thing is, she will probably be able to send this kid to school, to college, with money that she earned traveling the country.
Promoting
people.
abstinence.
Yeah, promoting abstinence and lecturing people on sex before marriage. So there's a silver lining. My favorite.
I got my selective hypocrisy hashtag ready to go.
Yeah. SH.
SH, yo.
That's right. Selective hypocrisy is trending. At the end, this is my favorite quote. Especially from someone who's newly pregnant and was hiding it and had to release it. At the end of the day, there's nothing I can't do with God by my side.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was out of the room a few months ago. And I know I am fully capable of handling anything that is put in front of me with dignity and grace. I'm sorry.
Yes, you are, woman.
I'm sorry.
Holy guacamole.
Yeah. Okay, I'll leave my remarks on that particular quote to my stand-up, so you'll have to come see me live to get the real answer on that, because wow. All right, who do we have on the line?
We got all kinds of folks.
Yeah, let's start the hour out with Nashville Carl.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
I love that idea. I'm for it 100%. Hi, Nashville Carl. Welcome to the show.
I heard Carl.
Is he there? I hear him rustling around.
3, 2,
no, wait,
1.
He's gonna pop on.
Can we leave him on hold?
I'll put him on hold.
Yeah.
Okay.
And see if Carrie can reach out to him. Okay, who else do we got?
Getting groceries or something.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, let's go to. This is a first-time caller, so Johnny, don't freak her out. It's Katie in Indiana.
Okay. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Hal. It's nice to talk to you. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure. Go ahead.
I was just calling about I saw on TV on Friday about their legalizing marriage for gays everywhere in the United States, and I'm just so glad about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's technically it doesn't legalize it. It just calls unconstitutional the bans against it. There's still some mechanical stuff that can and will have to be done in each of the states to kind of clean up after the ruling, but effectively, there'll be a few stays and people, about that, but that's
okay.
But yes, effectively that is what happened.
That's awesome, because I've had some family members who were, and I'm just glad that it's finally coming out now that everybody gets a chance to marry who they want to marry, and I think that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
I'm on Twitter, and you tweet me sometimes back, and I just wanted to appreciate it. Katie Doodlebug too.
Okay, well, thanks very much, and thanks for tweeting. And anytime, by the way, you send a message about what we're talking about on the show, just add the hashtag HSRPM, and that's the way we can get it part of the conversation.
Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah,
I love getting all ages on this show.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I enjoy watching Lab Rats all the time, and
I do too.
Thank you for all you do for everybody. And when I watch your stand up, I like it when you talk about sweet tea, because it really cracks me up. I like drinking tea.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
I appreciate it. I will. I'm glad you like that bit. And being from Indiana, you're on the fence about it, because some places will have it because they're under the illusion that somehow, even though it's Indiana, they're somehow Southern. That always strikes me as funny. If people act the country, you're like, no, you're rural, but you're not Southern. Let's be real clear about that. And sweet tea is a Southern thing, and we're all grown-ups.
I know. I grew up in South Carolina, and and everybody always talked about sweet tea and unsweetened tea, and I was like, it's just tea, man. You
Yeah,
know?
right. Just let it be tea, man. That's where my march for equality started.
Let it be tea.
Right. Thank you so much for calling. I really appreciate it. That was awesome.
Well, that was nice.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And,
She's a fan on all fronts.
Yeah. And by the way, the chat is up at YouTube. I tweeted the link, and everybody who's in the chat room can throw out the link as well on their Twitter feed if you want to join.
Not to keep the progress from the calls moving forward.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a friend because Queer as Folk is apparently running again on Showtime.
Showtime, right.
And so you can, if you've got Showtime, you can go out and binge watch it on their website and everything like that. And my friend had not seen season 5 just because of the way her cable worked out. She didn't have it for the last season. And she was thinking when she tuned in, well, this is probably going to seem sort of tame, or the rights that they're fighting for are going to seem kind of maybe quaint because we've come so far. And no.
No.
No. A, that show was never tame, never could be perceived as tame. And B, they were fighting for the exact same things that we're fighting for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
10 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, and P.S. It's that if you look at this from the, I tweeted this yesterday, but I was like, I'm proud that the Ben and Michael relationship that my character and Bobby Gant's character were involved in on Queer as Folk has gone from hope to history, because when we did that show, the idea of them being married was a hopeful one, and they went to Canada. First legally married gay couple on American television, and
that's so awesome.
And to be a part of that, especially at the time, was very powerful. And then for it to turn into to become on such a historic day, it just felt good. And by the way, I still have the rings. I still have the wedding rings from Bobby that Bobby and I wore on the show. And he also has a pair of them too, because there were doubles in case we needed.
There better be.
Yeah, and so we each have a set of the rings. And it's really kind of it's one of the most like.
And when you marry your dog.
Yeah, that's what I'll wear.
Those are the ones you're gonna
put him on his collar around his neck, and yeah, and as he licks himself during the ceremony, I'll take that as I do.
No, definitely, I did.
Yeah,
because I could.
All right, let's.
He's here only for 1 week, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, right. That's easy. All right, you're freaking Dennis out. All right.
Let's go to San. His name is San in Gary, Indiana.
Excellent.
Or Indiana.
Hey, San, welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Hal?
I'm good. Go ahead.
Hey, look, I just called speak on Justice Clarence Thomas. Man, that dude in the 70s, he wouldn't have been able to marry his spouse.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. Right. Exactly.
Why would he say things like that? That slippery slope. The slippery slope is when we let people like him in that office get that job.
Well, interestingly enough, he hardly ever talks. He doesn't ask questions.
When he does talk, it makes news.
Yeah, and when he writes an opinion, it usually is a rubber stamp of Scalia's opinion, and in this case it is. His is actually slightly lighter, but it sounds like it was dictated by his wife, who's a Tea Party activist, on his phone. It does. She's like, she says
he pretty much is a shill for her.
Yeah, and the weird thing is she says stuff that is like that tacit racism that you hear from the Tea Party all the time, and you're like, your husband is a black Supreme Court justice. How much contempt do you have for this man? That boggles my mind. You're absolutely right. And it was a big moment when Clarence Thomas became like our second black Supreme Court justice, and it was a big deal that the Republicans were actually instrumental in putting him in there. But the fact is, he ended up being just a mouthpiece for their views and an exchange for the job. Look, we'll get you in there. You'll do what we tell you to. You'll say what we tell you to say, and it's a shame. And ever since then, that's been the case. There's been very few moments, and I can't think of any specific. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, where he's actually bucked the party line and written or ruled in a direction that they wouldn't. So yeah, look at it. All right. So thanks for the call. Let's take a break, and we'll take more of the calls. 773-763-9278. Supreme Court rules that gay marriage bans throughout the country, state bans on gay marriage, are unconstitutional and provide. And under the 14th Amendment, do not provide equal protection under the law for gay couples. And if you weren't listening last hour, the slippery slope argument collapses under the weight of even the most childish logic. We'll be back right after this with more of your calls. 773-763-9278. Yeah, there's no residuals, John, to speak of. We get like a penny. We were under Canadian union laws for most of the show, and so yeah, we get next to nothing.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So Scalia's dissent against gay marriage becoming the law of the land this week was effectively a giant 8-page document yelling, "Get off my lawn." It's
Every time you say Scalia's dissent, I think you're going to say Scalia's descent into madness.
It's not far off. Listen to this. This is one of my favorite quotes. He's quoting the majority opinion. The nature of marriage is that through its enduring bond, two persons together can find other freedoms, such as expression, intimacy, and spirituality, he quoted from the majority opinion before adding, "Really? Whoever thought that intimacy and spirituality, whatever that means, were freedom?" And if intimacy is one would think freedom of intimacy is abridged rather than expanded by marriage. Ask the nearest hippie. Hippie. He used the word hippie
Dennis?
in his dissent.
Dennis is closest thing to a hippie I know. Look at him.
No, he's a hipster. He's got the beard and...
He's not a hipster.
I know that.
His
but
jeans are totally loose.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's not wearing form-fitting clothing and an ironic motorcycle on a scooter.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Poor
guy.
I love that though.
Leave me out of this.
And if intimacy is one would think freedom of intimacy is abridged rather than expanded by marriage. Ask the nearest hippie. So his idea of intimacy to him means sexual contact. Like, literally, Scalia thinks of intimacy not as the joining of two people or the deepening of a relationship, which is the standard definition, but the freedom to get intimate, with more and more people. If intimacy is, one would think, freedom of intimacy is abridged, meaning limited, rather than expanded by marriage, ask the nearest hippie? What? Well, and he actually writes like a ironic, really? You know, like he's Ted Knight in Caddyshack. Really? Whoever thought that intimacy and spirituality, whatever that means, were freedom. Really? Oh, Billy. I mean, that in and of itself is...
That is literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
It is amazing to me.
So, you fellas want to go round 2 on Nashville, Carl?
Yeah,
let's give it a try. Let's just see.
It's like a segment. Let's see. Here we go.
Yeah.
Carl.
There he is.
What?
Hey, guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Great.
Man, listen, I tell you what, I just came back from vacation. That's why I didn't call last week, but I was closer than you think. I was at home in Chicago.
Oh,
hey.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I gained about 20 pounds. And that was just Saturday.
And it's all deep pizza.
Wow.
It's all...
Yeah, don't be hungry when you show up here.
No.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And here's our thing. I don't eat anything. When I come back home to Chicago, me and my kids, we don't eat anything that we can get here.
Oh, so good for you.
Totally just Chicago out. So we put a lot of tax dollars for Cook County there this week.
There you go.
Spent a lot of money on food. Well, listen, guys. I mean, this has been an absolutely great week for liberals. Mm-hmm. It's been a great week for Democrats. It's been a great week for Americans. It really has. I mean, we just put a little bleach on the stain that sits upon the
totally
soul
agree.
of America. And you know, when at the end of the day, nana boo boo, especially to all the liberals who've been bitching and complaining about President Obama for the past 5-6 years. You know who you are, Tavis Smiley and other people like you. That just nothing but complaints about this president, and then you look at all the things that he's gotten done, just this week. If you ever sit back, and count up the things that this president has done for this country correctly, I mean, let's just start with saving of the American motor industry. You know, there would be no GM if it was the President Romney. Let's just suck on that for a minute.
Right on, man.
Just for a minute. And the things that he's done and the lack of credit that he's received for keeping this country from falling into a depression is unfreaking believable. And, you know, I hope I live long enough to see the Obama movie made, you know. So I'm trying to stay in as good health as I can because I want to see that movie.
I heard he wants to star in it, though, as his young self, and that's really what's holding the project up.
I will say this.
I want to see that movie because history is going to be. Think about that. He's going to look like a titan compared to George W. Bush.
I totally agree.
He's going to look like
100 years from now.
He's going to look like one of the best presidents ever.
And interestingly enough, you're right.
Absolutely.
He'll look like a titan compared to Clinton.
We're not going to have to make any of that up like Ronald Reagan.
Right.
You know.
Go ahead.
And as far as the Confederate flag goes and that type of thing, you know, it's unfortunate that 9 people had to lose their lives for us to really sit back and look and say, hey, that black needs to go. Alabama did it immediately. Kudos to them. The reason why South Carolina hadn't done that yet is unbelievable to me. I don't understand why Nikki Barbie, whatever her damn name, I don't know why she just don't just say, hey, listen, this thing needs to come down right now.
I think they did.
I think governor's order. Nikki Haley, I want it to come down right now. I mean, Alabama did it. Alabama can do it. Damn it, anyway. If Alabama can erase racism in this country, then anyone can. And I'm gonna leave with this note right here.
Okay.
I hardly ever. I'm talking like 99.9% of the time. I disagree with these jackasses, the Confederacy. But I agree with something he said. And this is a conversation that we won't have in America, liberal or Republican. And I agree with him, slippery slope. And this is what he said. He said, well, we started taking down monuments like the flag and Jefferson Davis and things like that. Then the next thing you know, we're going to try and take down statues of George Washington. I totally agree with him. this is one of the things that we have been really cowards in this country. That man owned other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, if we're going to be consistent, we must be consistent. If we're going to take down a Confederate flag and all the things that it stood for, we have to look close at the rest of those cowards. And yes, I call them cowards, the founding fathers. If they had any kind of heart about themselves, they would have ended slavery and made all men truly equal and free, not just white male landowners. And we have to look at that. We have to say, you know what, George Washington, you are the quote-unquote father of the nation, but dude, you own slaves.
Mm-hmm.
You owned other human beings.
Now, how do you feel about Jefferson, who owned them, but also seemed to be comfortable having sex with them and having children with them?
Absolutely, having children with them.
Right.
I mean, listen. Let me explain something to you. There's a reason why one of my kids have strands of red hair.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that. It didn't come out through love. It didn't even come out through quote unquote icky love.
Mm-hmm.
It came out through rape. It came out through rape, and the genetics are being passed down, and you can see it every time you cut on a television or walk down a street in America. You can see the genetic trace of African slaves being raped by their slave owners. And until we have that conversation
mm-hmm.
and call out the so-called founding fathers, then we will never, ever, ever have a legitimate conversation of racism and slavery in this country. We will never have it. It'll never be right until we call the cowards, which was the founding fathers, call them out for what they were. They own other human beings. And I don't know why the hell we put them up on a pedestal, but we're ready to cut the heads off of Jefferson Davis and General Lee, all those guys. They were just on the other side of it at that time, but all of them were guilty at once upon a time of owning slaves.
The distinction I would draw, and I think it's where it falls, is that while the slave owners previously, by the way, the reason that they didn't equate all people equally was at that time not even necessarily to how they treated black people, but it helped them clear out Native Americans. That the systematic genocide. They could even make friends and lovers of the slaves and housekeepers that they had. But it allowed them sort of the conscious blank space to kill natives wherever they went, not just the States, but in the Indies and the islands, through the Indian country,
absolutely.
Everything. And then
we have never had a legitimate debate on that. I mean, because what happens is if you call our fathers cowards and evil people, which and they were because they owned my ancestors, then you get shut down. You're un-American. You're unpatriotic. Why the hell am I un-American and unpatriotic? There's nothing more American than challenging your government. There's nothing more American than that, and challenging the history of your government and people who owned other human beings. I mean, until we have that conversation, it feels good, and it's easy to pile on the South. It really is. I live here in the South. It is so easy to pile on Jefferson Davis and those guys. It's easy.
Well, because I'll tell you why.
That someone to have conviction against the George Washington. It's hard for someone to speak
I agree,
out
but like I said,
really
I think the distinction and the important one and why it comes in the stage that it's coming in is that while the Founding Fathers owned slaves, and that was part of the methodology of their mindset, as that mindset shifted, like the mindset on gay marriage is shifting now, or interracial marriage was shifting in the 60s, there were people...
It took 100 and some years for that mindset.
But the point
happened overnight. It took 100 years.
The point I'm trying to make is that the Jefferson Davises of the world fought to keep it in place. So there are those who had their own epiphanies about it. They had their own. They were torn about it. It was a normalcy as they grew up, but then they came to a realization, even though they were slave owners. One of the reasons, by the way, that my last name Sparks has more blacks than whites with that last name is because there was a slave owner that I'm to some degree unfortunately not related to, who was one of the first abolitionists. Who came in a moment of conscience, said, I'm not going to own people anymore. And his slaves took his name to prove their freedom as they moved north. And so it became that transition. So the name Sparks actually was more consistent with black people for a long time.
Did you know that my grandmother's last name was Sparks? Are we related?
No, but I hope so. But the point is, we first vilify and go after not those who, in the ignorance of history, hid from their own conscience for a long time and battled with that, but the people who fought knowing full well that what they were doing was wrong and that their own religious system, their own belief system, and their own conscience, they overrode it and took up arms against people who said, no, everybody should be free. That's why we go there first. But I think you're absolutely right about that conversation. We got to take a break. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Had to blast into that one. Sorry, it was chit-chatting.
So
yeah,
he took me to
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back to the show. 773-763-9278 is our number. Let's take more calls, and coming up at the bottom of the hour, the happy ending, which it almost like the whole show is that way to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But who do we have there, Dennis? Who we
Let's
got
go to
down?
Robert. Robert in Florida.
Cool. Hey, Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, long time no talk. I just want to say to my good friend Carl from Nashville, brother, if you want to make it to the Obama movie, you got to not put on 20 when you go to Chicago.
That's true, right?
You know, I went on vacation. I went to Morocco. I went 20 the other way. I swear to God, the food there makes the truck stop buffet look like gourmet food. I tell you, don't go there.
Okay.
Deal.
All right. The reason I'm calling is it's been such a beautiful week. The only irony in this whole thing is the way the decisions came out. I mean, I wish that the Obamacare decision came out second, because I think that is actually more important. Because not to make light of my friends who are gay and all that stuff like that, we always knew the votes were going to be this way. I had no doubt of the outcome. The only irony is the way the votes came out. I would have thought more like the Obama decision for the gays, and maybe just squeaking through for the Obamacare 5-4 the other way instead of being 6-3, which was a pleasant surprise, obviously.
It was,
but
right.
I think had the first one come out second, I think that would emphasize more as the importance of Obamacare and what it really means to America.
Certainly, every American, gay or straight, is affected by how the Obamacare court ruling came down. It does affect everyone equally in that regard. As much as the funny thing about it is, as much as people who are vilifying the decision on gay marriage are freaking out, the reality is it ultimately helps their country and themselves. Long term, they'll have to deal with it, but that's true. The Affordable Care Act, though, there are dozens of people, well-known Republican kind of bloggers and whatnot, that have had these cases where their insurance has run out when they've gotten sick and all this, and they've suddenly turned and changed their tune on the Affordable Care Act and are now able to live and not lose their house and not lose, their and die effectively because they have insurance. And so this is a huge turn. You're absolutely right. And interestingly enough, the response to it by the same people who are against the gay marriage ruling effectively was just as unhinged. They were just as flagrant. I mean, Scalia effectively said this is the end of the rule of law as we know it, and says that it dictates who his ruler is in this country.
Wait a minute. I spent. Wasn't that the same decision when he decided that Bush was going to be president instead of Gore, and instead of letting the Florida Supreme Court count the votes, they decided that by finding out the results of that it would harm George Bush's chance of winning. So they decided that they were going to decide the ruler. So Scalia, he's a paisan, but he's a big stroons. I don't know what he's saying.
Well, the fascinating part, I trust that we don't have to dump the word big stroons.
I got so much fire. I'm glad to be back home in America, and I'm glad to hear you guys.
We're glad to have you.
Nashville, Carl,
yeah.
Don't lose the 20, brother.
Absolutely. You guys can have a meal together, and you can police each other. There you go.
I would love that. He's a great guy.
Absolutely.
Goodbye.
Thanks for calling. It's the fascinating part about Scalia's and Roberts' opinion on the Affordable Care Act. Now, Roberts was one that ultimately went for it, and he tries to have it both ways, much like the first bite at the apple that he had with the Affordable Care Act. And he says they have a I want to get the exact quote directly, but he essentially said that while they have a good point, the court has to look at the broader structure of the act. The petitioner's plain meaning arguments are strong, which is complete baloney, by the way, and he knows it. But it's a way of like making them feel better. It's like patting them on the head. But the act's context and structure compel the conclusion that Section 36B allows tax credits for insurance purchased on any created under the act. It doesn't have to be just a state exchange. And it doesn't have to be just a federal exchange. There's that's effectively a typo, and you can't dismantle a law based on a typo. And he stuck to that, and so that soundly protected, going forward, any nitpicky aspect where people try to break apart the act on that. And the court has effectively just said we don't need to hear it anymore. Mm-hmm. Stop bringing us your, this word, what assured, like, we're not going to hear it. Buzz off. The heart of the law is actually working, and the vast majority of people, who are served by it will be decimated by its removal, which is really where
and it's working, and there is no option being offered.
No. And the option that the Republicans threw up was, we'll do a bill that is Obamacare for 2 years, dies after 2 years no matter what. We'll replace it with one with a shelf life, And then that saves us from having to come up with anything. It'll just fall apart. And it won't be our fault. We'll just blame backwards that it was badly worded when they first put it together, which will play into that whole nobody ever read it baloney that they put forward. Which, by the way, every law is read. Every one of them goes through committee. Everybody meets with their committee members who will brief them on what's going on. The language is picked over. That's how it's done. We do military budgets bigger than the Affordable Care Act every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And they redline and go through stuff that never sees the light of day. So you talk about opaque aspects of the law. You can still read the Affordable Care Act. It is all there. But the 3,000-page defense bill that pays contractors and builds stuff for the Abrams tank and John Bain that are never going to be used but spend billions of dollars, you're never going to see the actual outlays of pays for that. So that bill is still something, quote-unquote, nobody can read, but they make one every single year that size. So I don't want to hear about the size of the bill, and I want to hear this nonsense about not reading it. Because the reality is, if you're not reading it to cover, get started.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's coming from your rep. If one of your reps is saying, nobody knows what's in this, and he's holding a copy of it, he's an idiot. Honestly.
You know what could fix that?
Go to your office and read it. I don't want to see it.
Statements about something you don't know anything about that you've just confessed you don't know anything about.
Right. And don't have a 15-person staff if you can't hand them a bill as soon as it comes through and have them break down parts of it in sections and go through, any problematic areas that you
Here, you read the hard part right here.
Yeah, right.
That will part with the big words.
Exactly what they do. So it's a cartoon. I mean, that whole nobody wants to read it just plays on a certain section of the country's fear of reading. That's what it is. That's just silly.
I think we got more calls.
We do. Let's take another call before we go to break.
Dave in San Francisco's on deck, but first let's go to Ken in Oswego.
All right. Hi, Ken. Welcome.
Hey, Al.
Hey, go ahead.
I just wanted to give you the argument that I use to defeat the marijuana as a gateway drug argument.
Yeah. Okay.
It always leaves them standing there with that just got caught with my hand in the cookie jar look on their face.
Okay.
I tell them that, well, it's only a gateway drug because it's illegal, and the people they have to get it from lead them to the other drugs.
Exactly.
Such as cocaine and heroin and that kind of thing.
Oh,
because
a fair
those
point.
people don't care how old you are. They don't care what you're doing to your life. They just care about getting the money. When if it's decriminalized, we can regulate it, and we can see to it that it, for the most part, only gets into the hands of people who are going to be responsible with it.
Liquor stores don't sell pot in the same way, and they don't sell heroin and cocaine and methamphetamines. They just sell liquor, and that's regulated specifically to that amount. The same way pot dispensaries don't supply any other drugs. And that's an easy way to manage it. It doesn't mean that you have to get into whether or not you have the freedom and blah blah blah. Get into the deep reads of the slippery slope argument. You just have to simply go, well, then all the more reason for it to be a very specific place that's highly regulated. And then you don't have somebody going, P.S. Have you tried this? You're absolutely right. It's a great.
First one's free.
Is that how it works? I would.
That's how I started my extensive drug dealing operation.
Right.
Yep. And by the way, before the first time I ever smoked any, I ate apple pie too.
See, I told you it's
I knew it. That's a gateway pie.
The slippery slope is greased with slices of cheddar cheese. I just know it. Appreciate the call, and it's a great point. The slippery slope argument is always falls apart under the scrutiny that they're asking you to provide. That's the amazing point to it. Let's see. Let's take one more
Dave
call.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same page. Let's do Dave in San Francisco.
Excellent. Hi, Dave. Welcome.
Hey, greetings. And I don't know if you noticed it, but about an hour or so ago, down in Charleston, South Carolina, we've got some brand new heroes.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah, Bree Newsom and James Tyson.
Yeah.
Yeah. They climbed up the flagpole and pulled down the old rebel flag. So let's see, wasn't it the Civil War was started in South Carolina, and so maybe it'll be finished there.
Yep, and Bree is an activist for Black Lives Matter, and so is the man that was with. was filming it. She climbed in climbing gear up on the pole, took the flag down. They were both charged with misdemeanor defacing a public monument, but which is a misdemeanor and it's not really a big deal. But it was a beautiful sight. It's really terrific. And there's plenty of pictures of it. Thank you, social media, of it actually happening. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and it's funny. It looks like there were 2 or 3 different camera angles, and if I remember right, if you look at the video, he may be the guy that's standing there with the caution vest on.
Yes.
And the hard hat.
Yeah.
I think that's him. So he's not videotaping it. He's in proximity. He was her assistant in the flagpole.
And protect her to some degree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so when she's coming down, you can hear the comments. I'm seeing it on. There's one of the social medias has got it. Hey, I was going to also mention, with the Supreme Court rulings yesterday, I mean, we, out here in California, it's been now 20 years since we legalized pot. Now we're able to get legalized love and health care.
Right.
And so the idea that these guys have been scaring people forever, coming up with these sob stories about how their life itself will die if we don't keep their paranoias alive. And if I remember right, I might have mentioned this to you, Hal. There's a famous book that was written back in the late 50s about Joe McCarthy. It's written by a Senator Potter from Michigan, and he's claiming, that Joe McCarthy was able to get this top-secret budget going by the fear-mongering. And so these guys were able to milk top-secret budgets forever. So you look at the war on drugs and the war on prostitution and the war on gays and the war on health care and the war on... These guys have come up with... And now they're having a war on Islam, all based on top secrecy and fear-mongering.
Oh, yeah.
So and we're basically allowing bad lawyers to keep this fear-mongering going.
I'll go you one better. I appreciate the call. We're right up against the break, but you're absolutely right. I'll go you one better. Every time we declare war on something, and that's including a real war, there's always more of it. The war on terror raised the number of terrorist attacks in the world. When we actually declared war on Germany and Japan, they ultimately became stronger economies than us at a certain point. Whenever we declare war on poverty, it goes up. War is a terrible metaphor or a solution for solving a problem. And I've said it before. If we had a war on nudity, we'd lose. All the clothing stores would shut down. It's just how it works. It's a terrible analogy. We'll be back right after this with the happy ending.
All right, man. We got one more call, and then Seth with a happy ending too.
Cool. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Let's go. I'll post a picture of the ring on my Instagram, just so everybody can get a pic, can see it.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending.
Welcome back to the show. Let's take another call, and then we'll get to our happy ending business. Who do we have there, Dennis?
He was a champ for holding on. He's William in Chicago.
Excellent. Hey, William, welcome.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good. Go ahead.
I'll get right to my point. Like the guy said, my point is that if you study the history of this nation, it's the Democrat Party who owns the Confederate flag, and I'll tell you why.
Well, because of the Dixiecrats, but they switched sides. Effectively, the label switched under the Civil Rights Movement. It's the Southern Democrats associated with Dixiecrats.
That's demagoguery. Hold on, let me make my point.
It's history.
Nonsense.
It's history.
No, you're wrong. No, listen. The Democrats had an overwhelming majority who voted against the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah, those were the Dixiecrats, and the Northern Democrats switched away from that, and the Republicans switched to that party. They're the same people, different label. That's
Don't be afraid. Listen,
I'm telling you.
You're not giving me a chance to talk. No. I'm sorry. Why do you think that the Republicans never had a majority elected officials in any southern state until 1980?
Because they switched.
Because your Democrats.
Not my Democrats. My Democrats are Alan Grayson. My Democrats are Barack Obama and Elizabeth Warren. My Democrats are not the pre-Lyndon Johnson Democrats you're talking about. That's like saying the Republicans who became the Whig Party are the exact same people. The Confederate flag is a Dixiecrat flag, no question. Nobody's arguing that point. They're not the same human beings, though. You can't blame. Okay, then explain this to me.
You just can't let anybody talk. You can't let anybody talk.
Well, because you're making a Fox News argument, it's just a fallacy.
It is not a fallacy.
It is too.
Why do you think? What? Then why is
do
it
you
that
think?
All the way 1960, you won't let me finish the sentence because you're so afraid of the truth.
I'm not afraid of it. It's not the. It's an obvious chunk of history. These aren't the same human beings. Are you saying that the modern Democratic Party is the party of racial discrimination in this country? Are you saying that right now? Are you saying that since 1965, that from Lyndon Johnson signing it on, that they have been representative of the disenfranchisement of African Americans the way the Republicans have since that time?
Sorry, man. I went ahead and dropped him because I knew we had to do the happy ending.
Yeah,
I knew
exactly.
that was gonna go all the way to the end.
This is like, you gotta, if you're gonna have that argument, call in next week at the top of the show so we actually have time to like. Just
with real names rather than labels, because you can't use the vague concepts.
No, like Breitbart and Fox always use the Dixiecrat argument, and that's happened for quite some time. It's goofy, and yet they'll still use that as the basis of it. It was the Democrats who, Lincoln was a Republican. Yeah, but the ideas he represent now are represented by the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party has basically was taken over by the Dixiecrats at the time. They switched labels. It's mustard became ketchup and ketchup became mustard. They just took the label off the bottle and flip-flopped it. That doesn't mean the ideology is different. It doesn't mean these aren't the same people who fought for abolition. It's just weird. And if, by the way,
you really need a happy ending.
Yeah, seriously. Okay, let's do it.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks Radio.
That was wrong one.
Wrong happy ending.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo.
Okay, so the fall of the Confederate flag this week was a huge aspect of what I think is the happy ending. But how it went about in a lot of ways was, I think, terrific. Alabama, as Nashville Carl mentioned, took it down. They did it in a relatively unceremonious way. The Alabama governor, Robert Bentley, who is a Republican, quietly ordered the removal of the Confederate flag from the state capitol grounds this morning. His office confirmed to local press this was Friday. Yeah. When asked if this was due to controversy over the flag following the shooting of 9 black Americans at a church in South Carolina, he said, yes, partially this is about that. This is the right thing to do. We are facing some major issues in the state regarding the budget and other matters that we need to deal with. This had the potential to become a major distraction as we go forward. I have taxes to raise. We have work to do. This is, by the way, this is a Republican governor saying he needed to remove the flag so that people wouldn't be fighting about that while he has taxes to raise. It was my decision that the flag needed to come down. It was flying atop a Confederate monument on the State House grounds, reportedly a short walk from the governor's mansion. So he had to look at it every day when he went to work. Meanwhile, like we mentioned also, and there's a hashtag Free Bree that's going on because she got arrested for misdemeanor trespassing and defacing a public monument. Sick of waiting, woman takes down South Carolina Confederate flag herself. Early Saturday morning, a Carolina activist scaled a flagpole outside a state house in Columbia, South Carolina, and removed the Confederate flag. After climbing down from the 30-foot pole, the woman, identified as Bree Newsom on Twitter, was arrested. Newsom is associated with the Keep It Down campaign aimed at removing the Confederate flag. The flag is protected by state law, and was shortly thereafter. A pro-flag rally is planned at the site later this morning. We can't wait any longer, Newsom said in a statement regarding the motivation behind her decision to remove the flag herself. We can't continue like this another day. It's time for a new chapter where we're sincere about dismantling white supremacy and building toward true racial justice. Equality. So really cool way she did it. I thought that was terrific. And by the way, did you see Obama sing Amazing Grace?
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. That moment where he was calling out the victims' names, saying that they had found that grace it was one of the most profound moments of a very profound speech overall. And I echo Nashville Carl and some of our other callers that we've had, and a lot of our chat room folks, that liberals especially need to check themselves a little bit in this, like, better than any president, and they're just the same nonsense that you constantly hear.
Yep.
Because you're basically saying if we can't jump to the top of a ladder, there is no need for the rungs. And the value of each stepping point in the move towards social justice and the move towards equality and the move towards all these, to denigrate the victories that this president has had is the same as not understanding that Clinton's "don't ask, don't tell" move was an attempt to be mitigatory, was an attempt, however flawed, to make things better than they were at that time. And that the value of that is very strong and very important. And that a lot of what this president has done, while we don't have single payer from the ACA, if you think we were going to get there without it, you're sorely mistaken. And the same thing is true of a number of this president's policies that, this why don't we go for the throat and hope for the best, it seemed to work for Bush. These people are forgetting how many failures the Bush administration gets to look on are being scrubbed in their wake. If you want lasting change, this is what it looks like. And I'm proud of this president this week, especially in the face of all this. The rainbow lights on the front of the White House, the way he addressed, the use of a very provocative word this week. These are not easy steps to take, and that's why no president up to this point has taken them. So, Mr. President, I salute you. The happy ending is I voted for you twice, and I'm still proud of that vote. And another happy ending is Dennis and Johnny, you guys doing such a great job. And Dennis, you can produce my show anytime. And,
oh man, that was nice.
Yeah, dude, you're
I do what I can.
You're invaluable. Thanks so much to everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining the chat. We'll see you next week. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT.
Dude, that was so nice. Thank you.
Absolutely, dude. And I totally mean it. So thanks so much, and have a great week, and we will see you next week. And until Johnny, I said thanks for being there.
Now, do you want to do next week? It's 4th of July. Should we do a best of?
Yeah, very possibly. I mean, it might be.
I think so, man. We don't get a lot of listeners, really. We don't get too hot.
You got it. Okay, let's do a best of next week. That's a great idea. Okay.
Cool, man.
Okay, and I'll do a little special video for everybody that'll go up on the weekend and just kind of catch them up. That'll be great.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I can post that on YouTube without any problem. I can do that ahead of time. So thanks, Johnny.
He said thanks, or he said yeah, or whatever he said.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right, bye.
Later, man.
Okay, cheers. And thank you, chat room, for joining us today and being a part of that. It really means a lot. And I think we hummed along pretty well. It's sad we didn't get our Dixiecrat idiot until the very end, because that would have been a nice, funny conversation to have. But you guys are terrific, and I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. All right. Well, we'll see you a week after next live, but I'll see you guys on Twitter and on Facebook and all these other areas throughout the week. All right, bye.